Welcome back to Signal 2030, where we explore the scientific breakthroughs that are shaping our future.
It's great to be back with you. Today, we're going to take a look at a topic that, well, it touches millions of lives and really represents one of the most profound shifts in modern medicine: the revolution in obesity treatment.
It really is a revolution.
For decades, managing obesity felt like this constant uphill battle, and often unfairly blamed solely on personal choices. Willpower.
Absolutely. That narrative is finally changing.
But now, a groundbreaking new class of medications, and these are rooted in our body's own incredible hormonal systems, they're fundamentally shifting that whole story.
Yeah.
We're talking about drugs achieving levels of weight reduction in trials that were, frankly, almost unimaginable not long ago. They're truly transforming how we approach this complex chronic disease.
That's precisely it. And what's so fascinating, I think, is how our deeper, much more nuanced understanding of these metabolic hormones has directly led to these powerful new tools. This isn't just about, shedding pounds anymore. It's about tackling a complex chronic condition with really sophisticated pharmacology, all based on solid primary research.
Exactly. And that's what we want to unpack today. We'll dig into the science behind these incretin mimetics, look at what's currently available, and really making waves, peer into the future of this, incredibly rapidly evolving field.
It's moving so fast.
And then, crucially, talk about the very real challenges these breakthroughs present for patients, for healthcare systems, for society. We really want to give you a clear, well-informed perspective on this vital subject.
Sounds good.
So let's start with the basics, the science. These drugs are often called incretin mimetics. Can you break down for us what exactly are incretins and how are scientists actually harnessing them?
Certainly. So to really get these drugs, you need to understand how our body naturally responds when we eat. When you consume food, your gut releases this group of hormones called incretins. And they are absolutely critical for regulating your metabolism and energy balance. One of the key players here is glucagon-like peptide 1, or, GLP-1.
Right. Heard a lot about that one.
You probably have. It acts almost like a conductor for your metabolism. It boosts insulin release, but, and this is clever, only when your blood sugar is high.
Ah, okay. So it avoids that risk of going too low.
Exactly. Reduces the risk of hypoglycemia. It also suppresses glucagon, which normally raises blood sugar. And really importantly for weight management, it slows down how fast food leaves your stomach.
Keeping you feeling full longer.
Precisely, that satiety signal. And maybe most significantly, it acts directly in the brain to reduce appetite and those cravings.
Wow. Okay, so it's hitting multiple targets just with GLP-1.
It really is.
Okay.
Then there's the other main one, glucose-dependent insulinotropic polypeptide, or GIP.
Okay.
Also released after you eat. It stimulates insulin too, and we're increasingly understanding its sort of unique role in fat metabolism and how the body stores energy.
Interesting. Now, what about glucagon? You mentioned GLP-1 suppresses it, but I thought glucagon raises blood sugar. How does that fit into weight loss? Seems counterintuitive.
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's where the science gets particularly interesting and maybe a bit complex. While, yes, glucagon is known for raising blood sugar, activating its receptor in certain ways can actually increase your overall energy expenditure and promote fat burning.
Huh. So it's like pushing the accelerator on metabolism while GLP-1 hits the brakes on appetite.
That's a pretty good analogy, yeah. It's a sophisticated way to approach weight loss from both sides, reducing intake and increasing the body's energy burn.
Fascinating. And you mentioned amylin briefly in the outline, too.
Yes, amylin. It's another natural hormone released alongside insulin. It also helps slow stomach emptying and promotes that feeling of fullness. So you see, each hormone has a distinct but complementary role.
Okay, so our bodies have these amazing, intricate systems already. But the real leap was turning these signals into actual drugs. How did the pharmaceutical companies manage that? How did we get from understanding GLP-1 to, well, Wegovy?
Well, it's unfolded as this really fascinating kind of efficacy arms race over the last maybe couple of decades.
An arms race.
Yeah. The first wave involved the GLP-1 receptor agonists, or GLP-1RAs, drugs like liraglutide. That's drugs like Saxenda and semaglutide, like Wegovy. These were engineered to bind to and really strongly activate those GLP-1 receptors.
So like a supercharged version of the natural hormone.
Exactly. Mimicking and amplifying the effect, but making it last much longer than the body's own known very short-lived GLP-1. And this directly led to significant appetite suppression, slower stomach emptying, and, meaningful weight loss in trials.
And that's when we really started seeing those double-digit percentage weight losses that got everyone's attention.
Precisely. But the competition, it didn't stop there. The second wave, which was really pioneered by Eli Lilly with tirzepatides, that's Zepbound, introduced the dual GIP-GLP-1 receptor agonists.
Okay, adding GIP into the mix.
Right. The thinking was activating both pathways, GLP-1 and GIP, would work synergistically, leading to even better results. And the clinical trials absolutely proved that hypothesis right. It set a new, much higher benchmark for weight loss.
Right.
And interestingly, there's some evidence suggesting the GIP part might even help reduce nausea, which is, as you know, a common side effect.
That would be a bonus. So first GLP-1, then GLP-1 plus GIP. What's next? Adding even more targets.
That's exactly the competitive response we're seeing right now in the pipeline. We're moving towards multi-agonists. We're seeing drugs that add glucagon activity to the mix.
The fat-burning aspect we talked about.
Exactly, aiming to not just cut appetite, but also boost energy expenditure. And the ultimate expression of this so far is the triagonist targeting GLP-1, GIP, and glucagon all at once. This stepwise escalation, it's consistently shown progressively higher percentages of weight loss in trials, really pushing the boundaries of what we thought possible with medication.
It's incredible. But, hitting more targets, becoming more potent, is there a biological ceiling? And what about side effects? Do they just keep getting worse?
That's a critical question, isn't it? While the weight loss numbers are climbing, from maybe 8% with the first generation up to potentially 24% or even more with these investigational multi-agonists.
Which is huge.
It is huge. But early reports do suggest that the most potent ones might come with more significant tolerability issues. Things like really severe nausea, other GI problems.
So it might be too much for some people to handle long term.
It could be. It could limit how many patients can actually reach or stay on those highest, most effective doses, which suggests that maybe a one-size-fits-all approach won't work.
Right.
And that could actually open up the market for drugs that maybe prioritize being easier to tolerate or more convenient rather than just chasing the absolute maximum weight loss number.
That makes sense. Okay, so with that scientific foundation, let's look at what's actually out there right now, approved and changing lives. The FDA has approved 3 key incretin therapies for chronic weight management.
Yes, these are really the core of modern pharmacological obesity treatment today. First up from Novo Nordisk is Wegovy. That's the brand name for semaglutide for weight management.
Okay.
Approved back in June 2021 for adults with obesity or overweight, and later for adolescents too. It's a once-weekly GLP-1 receptor agonist injection.
And its effectiveness was really a step change, wasn't it?
Absolutely. The main trials, like Step 1, showed patients achieving around 15% mean weight loss over about 68 weeks, which was remarkable at the time.
Yeah.
But the truly pivotal moment, I think, came in March 2024. Wegovy got an expanded indication. It was shown to reduce the risk of major adverse cardiovascular events, think heart attack, stroke, by 20%.
Wow.
And this was in patients with established cardiovascular disease, crucially, whether or not they had diabetes.
That's huge. So it's not just about weight anymore, it's protecting the heart.
Exactly. That finding from the SELECT trial fundamentally changed its value proposition. It became a critical tool for cardiovascular health, too.
So important for getting insurance coverage, too, I imagine.
Yeah.
What about the safety profile?
Well, like others in this class, it has an FDA boxed warning about thyroid C-cell tumors. This is based on studies in rodents. We don't know if it happens in humans.
Okay.
So it's generally not recommended if you have a certain personal or family history. The most common side effects are gastrointestinal nausea, diarrhea, vomiting, usually mild to moderate, often happen when you're first starting or increasing the dose.
Right, the dose escalation phase.
Exactly. And there are also warnings about potential risks like pancreatitis, gallstones, kidney injury, and also monitoring for depression or suicidal thoughts. Always things to discuss with your doctor.
Absolutely. Okay, next up is Zepbound. That's tirzepatide from Eli Lilly. And this one's different because it hits 2 targets, right?
That's right. Approved in November 2023. It's the first, and still the only, approved dual GIP and GLP-1 receptor agonist. And its efficacy is, well, even more impressive.
Higher weight loss numbers.
Yes. Trials like SURMOUNT-1 showed a mean weight loss around 18% in people without diabetes at 72 weeks on the highest dose. And significantly, in a direct head-to-head trial against Wegovy, Zepbound came out statistically superior.
Really? How much better?
Average weight loss was over 20% with Zepbound versus about 14% for Wegovy over a similar time frame.
Okay, that's a substantial difference. Really points to the power of hitting both GIP and GLP-1.
Just seem to.
Any unique safety things to know about Zepbound?
The overall safety profile is pretty similar. Same GI side effects being common, same thyroid C-cell tumor boxed warning. But it does have one unique warning. It can reduce the absorption of other oral medications.
Oh, like birth control pills.
Exactly, especially oral contraceptives. So the recommendation is for patients using those to switch to or add a non-oral barrier method for 4 weeks after starting Zepbound, and also for 4 weeks after each time the dose is increased.
Okay, that's really important for people to know. And it's also a once-weekly injection.
Yes, once weekly, gradual dose escalation, similar to Wegovy.
Got it.
Yeah.
So these are clearly very effective medications. But what's really crucial for listeners to grasp about taking them? I mean, this isn't like taking an antibiotic for a week, right?
Oh, absolutely not. That's a profoundly important point. Obesity is a chronic condition. It requires continuous treatment, just like high blood pressure or diabetes.
Right.
And we have stark evidence for this. The SURMO-4 maintenance study for tirzepatide was really eye-opening. It showed that if people stopped the medication after achieving significant weight loss,
What happened?
they regained a substantial portion of the lost weight, around 3/4 of it over the following year.
Wow, 3/4.
Yeah, whereas the group who continued taking the drug actually lost a little more weight during that same period.
So it's not about willpower failing when you stop the drug.
Not at all. It's biology. It's our body's powerful homeostatic mechanisms, that sort of rebound effect, trying desperately to return to its previous higher set point.
Right.
And that biological reality creates huge challenges for patients sticking with treatment long term, for dealing with side effects, cost, and it really complicates things like insurance coverage.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, the current drugs are already impressive, but as you said, the R&D race is just heating up. What exciting innovations should we be watching for in the pipeline?
Oh, it's moving incredibly fast. And what's fascinating is the different strategies companies are taking. Take Eli Lilly, for example. They already have the dual agonist Zepbound, but they're pushing further.
With that triagonist.
Exactly. Their investigational drug, retatrutide, it hits GLP-1, GIP, and glucagon. It's a potential game changer. Phase 2 trial showed an extraordinary mean weight reduction over 24% at 48 weeks.
24%, that's getting into bariatric surgery territory.
It absolutely is. And it also showed significant benefits for fatty liver disease, which is another major issue.
But, as we discussed, that potency might come with a price in terms of side effects.
That seems to be the case. Early reports from the trials have mentioned tolerability concerns. Some participants experienced severe nausea, even kidney stones, which led to dose reductions. Managing that velocity of weight loss and the side effects will be key if it gets approved.
Makes sense. What else does Lilly have cooking?
They're also tackling convenience with orforglipron. This is an oral GLP-1 RA, a once-daily pill.
Ah, no injections. That would be huge for a lot of people.
Potentially, yes. And because it's a small molecule, not a complex peptide like the injectables, it might have fewer manufacturing bottlenecks. Plus, you can take it without worrying about food or water restrictions. Phase 3 data showed nearly 8% weight loss in 40 weeks, and they plan to submit it for approval very soon.
Okay, an oral option definitely changes the landscape. How is Novo Nordisk responding? They're the current market leader with Wegovy and Saxenda.
They're not standing still, that's for sure. They're pursuing multiple strategies, too. One is CagriSema. This is a fixed-dose combination. There's semaglutide plus an amylin analog called cagrilintide.
Okay, adding amylin.
Right. Phase 3 showed impressive weight loss over 22%. However, tolerability was a significant issue. Only about half the participants could actually handle the highest dose.
Suggesting maybe additive side effects?
That's the concern, yeah. It could limit how useful it is in the real world. Then they have amycretin. This is a co-agonist, hitting both GLP-1 and amylin receptors. And they're developing it as both an injectable and an oral pill.
Another oral contender.
Yes, and the very early data for the oral version looks really exciting. Over 13% weight loss in just 12 weeks in a phase 1 study.
13% in 12 weeks from a pill. That's fast.
Very fast, makes it a strong contender. They also have mazdutide, which is a GLP-1 glucagon agonist, already approved over in China, showing nearly 15% weight loss.
Okay, so lots happening with the big two. Are there other players trying to break into this market with different approaches?
Yes, definitely. Amgen has Maritide. Its technical name is maridebart cafraglutide. It takes a really unique approach. It activates GLP-1 like the others, but it actually blocks the GIP receptor.
Flocks GIP, that's the opposite of Zepbound.
Exactly. It's a different hypothesis about how these pathways interact, but its big potential advantage is dosing frequency. It might be a once-monthly injection, maybe even less frequent than that.
Wow, once a month would be convenient. How's the efficacy?
Phase 2 showed weight loss up to around 20%, so pretty strong. But again, there were some concerns about people stopping the drug due to GI side effects.
A recurring theme. Now, what about Pfizer? They seem to struggle in this space.
They really have, unfortunately. It's been quite public. They've faced significant setbacks with their oral GLP-1 candidates. Danuglipron was discontinued. There were concerns about liver injury and really high rates of GI side effects. Over 50% of people stopped taking it in some groups.
Ouch.
Yeah. And their earlier oral candidate, lotiglipron, also failed because of liver enzyme issues. So these repeated failures mean Pfizer is, for now, quite far behind in the race for an effective oral option.
Right, so the takeaway seems to be the future isn't just about pushing weight loss numbers higher and higher,
Yeah.
but also finding that sweet spot with convenience, tolerability, and maybe these novel mechanisms like GIP, antagonism, or different combinations.
I think that's exactly right. It's becoming a much more nuanced landscape.
Okay, so while these drugs are clearly revolutionary from a scientific standpoint, getting them integrated into healthcare, into society, that presents some really complex challenges. What do listeners need to understand about those broader implications?
Yeah, this is where the science meets the real world, and it gets complicated. I think you can frame it around three major interconnected crises that are shaping this market right now.
Okay, 3 crises. What's the first?
The first is the challenge of sustained use and the reality of weight regain. We touched on this, but it really bears repeating. Obesity is chronic. You need ongoing treatment.
Right, the rebound effect.
Exactly. Studies consistently show that when people stop these drugs, they regain, on average, about 75% of the weight they lost. And it happens pretty quickly. Again, this isn't about willpower. It's powerful biology. And this reality creates huge hurdles. Patients struggle with adherence long-term, maybe due to side effects, maybe cost, maybe the hassle, maybe drug shortages. And it really complicates how insurers think about covering these potentially lifelong therapies.
A huge practical challenge.
Okay.
What's the second crisis or key consideration?
This one is actually a positive, but it has implications. The pleiotropic health benefits, meaning the benefits beyond just weight loss.
Like the cardiovascular protection with Wegovy.
Precisely. That select trial showing a 20% reduction in major cardiovascular events was huge. And importantly, that benefit seems to be at least partly independent of the weight loss itself.
Suggesting direct protective mechanisms.
Exactly, which is pivotal for justifying their value and getting broader insurance coverage. But it doesn't stop there. We're seeing consistent evidence these drugs improve fatty liver disease, now often called MASLD.
Okay.
And they seem to slow the progression of chronic kidney disease. These are major public health problems linked to obesity.
Absolutely. And you mentioned some possible brain effects earlier, too.
Yes, that's an emerging and really intriguing area. GLP-1 receptors are found in the brain. There's research looking into whether these drugs might reduce neuroinflammation. And some early data, population-level studies, have hinted at links between using these drugs and lower rates of substance use disorders, like for alcohol or marijuana.
Wow, that's unexpected. Still early days on that, I assume.
Very early days, needs much more research. But it highlights that these hormones have wide-ranging effects we're still uncovering.
Okay. So challenge 1 is sustained use. Challenge benefit 2 is the wider health effects. What's the third major crisis?
This is the trifecta that everyone's talking about right now: supply, cost, and safety. They're all interlinked. First, the supply crisis.
We hear about shortages all the time.
Exactly. The demand has been absolutely unprecedented, far outstripping what manufacturers planned for. And producing these drugs, they're complex biologic peptides. It's not like making a simple pill. It's time-consuming, requires specialized facilities.
And the injector pens themselves are complicated.
Yes, the sophisticated auto-injector pens add another whole layer of manufacturing complexity, supply chain issues, and even patent protection strategies.
Okay, so supply can't meet demand, which leads directly to
the cost crisis. Especially here in the U.S., a month's supply of Wegovy or Zepbound can easily cost over $1,000, sometimes closer to $1,300 or $1,400 without insurance.
which is just completely unaffordable for most people.
Completely. And insurance coverage is patchy at best. Many plans exclude weight loss drugs entirely, or they put up huge barriers like strict prior authorization requirements. This creates massive health equity problems. Access is often determined by your wallet, not your medical need.
A huge issue. And this combination of high demand, high cost, and shortages,
Mm-hmm.
that creates a dangerous situation, right?
It absolutely does. It fuels the third part, the safety crisis from unregulated compounding.
Compounding pharmacies mixing their own versions.
Exactly. Because the approved drugs are scarce and expensive, a gray market has exploded for compounded versions. The FDA has issued really strong warnings about this. These compounded products are not FDA approved.
And they might not even contain the right ingredient.
That's the scary part. Investigations have found some compounded products using different salt forms, like semaglutide sodium or acetate, which haven't been proven safe or effective. Others might have incorrect dosages, or worse, contain impurities. It's a direct danger to patients.
A really serious public health concern driven by these other factors. Have there been other safety signals regulators are watching? What about those reports linking them to suicidal thoughts?
Yes, that has been reviewed. The European Medicines Agency did a thorough review of reports suggesting a possible link, but they concluded in April 2024 that the available evidence didn't support a causal association between these drugs and suicidal thoughts or actions.
Okay, so no proven link found there.
Not according to the EMA review. However, it's worth noting the U.S. prescribing information for drugs like Wegovy and Zepbound still includes a recommendation to monitor patients for depression or any emergence or worsening of suicidal thoughts or behaviors. So it's something doctors and patients should still be aware of and discuss.
Got it. So wrapping things up, this therapeutic revolution, it seems to have firmly cemented obesity as a complex chronic metabolic disease.
Absolutely. It shifted the paradigm away from just lifestyle failure and the sheer pace of the scientific innovation, going from the first GLP-1 RAs just over a decade ago to potentially triagonists rivaling surgery on the horizon. It's truly remarkable.
It really is. And the future seems to promise a much more personalized approach to obesity care, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
You can almost imagine a doctor selecting a drug, not just based on your BMI,
Right.
but maybe on your specific metabolic profile, whether you also have fatty liver disease or heart risks, and maybe even just your preference. Do you want a daily pill, a weekly shot, or maybe even a monthly one?
That's exactly the direction things are heading. More options, more tailoring.
So what does this all mean for you listening today? This isn't just a story about some fancy new drugs. It's really about a fundamental shift in how we understand human biology, metabolism, chronic disease, and also about the immense societal challenges that come along when science delivers truly transformative breakthroughs. So maybe the provocative thought to leave you with is this. As these incredibly effective treatments become more common, what responsibility do we have? As individuals, as a society, how do we ensure they're used safely, that people understand they require long-term commitment, and critically that they're accessible to everyone who could benefit, not just the fortunate few who can afford the staggering price tag? It's a really powerful question for the future of health globally.
It's a very important question indeed.
Well, thank you for joining us on Signal 2030. We really hope this exploration into the new frontier of obesity treatment has given you a clearer, more nuanced picture of this rapidly evolving landscape.
Bye for now, and we hope to see you soon.